Spidey gets an upgrade. Here's your look at the Hot Toys video game masterpiece, the Spider-Man Iron Spider armor. Introduced in the page of the Marvel Comics Amazing Spider-Man, the Iron Spider armor has captured fans' eyes with its distinctive design element. Fans can now enjoy swinging around the city in this astonishing suit in the critically acclaimed video game Marvel's Spider-Man. Before we get down to the review of the Iron Spider, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the figure stands. So I'm going to take the tape measure right to here, which I feel is the highest point on him. I'm going to stop it right there. According to the readouts, the Iron Spider stands 12.02 inches in height. Switching that to centimeters, revealing that the figure is 30.5 centimeters tall. For displaying options, Spider-Man comes included with a hexagonal display stand, which as you can see features the Spider-Man logo and symbol on the top. Now this does have a textured look to it. I don't know if you can actually see it or not. It does almost have like a very soft grit sandpaper feel to it. And then of course the Spider-Man logo on the top and the font down below is slightly more recessed. It's a little more smoother as well. I do like the display stand. I have one real issue with it, and I'll talk about it in a second. But before that, there's Spider-Man on the front there, Iron Spider armor to be exact. And it does have the adjustable neck. Now, this neck does come in handy if you want to have Spider-Man displayed in different poses. But I tell you this, I have an issue with the fact that they went for such a small size on this. When we eventually start looking at the arms that will be attached to the back of Spider-Man's torso, the real thing that comes into play is the fact that the figure becomes more top-heavy. And I feel like this isn't nearly enough the proper size. A long time ago, when we were first getting Hot Toys Spider-Man figures, remember we used to get them in almost like a baseball diamond shape, and they were a lot bigger in size. Now, granted, it would take up a lot more space on a display, but I feel for compensating for the fact that Spider-Man's arms are going to be a lot heavier, and it's going to make the figure's top heaviness a lot heavier, I wish they had gone with a larger stand than what we're getting right here. This stand is ideal for if you just want to have him in museum poses, but if you want to have him lifted off the stand and in a more dynamic pose, this size of stand just isn't big enough. And a lot of times I had the figure sort of weebling and wobbling. A couple of times even, it lifted the base right off the turntable. So I wish this was, like I said, a little bit bigger. I do appreciate the fact that at least they gave you the adjustable neck, and they also gave you a supporting cradle right down below. So this does clamp around Spider-Man's waist, but then you also have this extra piece that sits just underneath his legs. So all you really then do is take the figure. I know we're not technically put him in any pose just yet. Get that down, clip this around, and literally all it does is it just clamps underneath his crotch right there, and then clamps around to the sides. You're worried that this is going to cause damage to the material of his fabric. Just know that they did add like a little bit of a felt interior on the sides and also along the bottom as well. Again, like I wish that for the sake of the sizing, obviously it looks strange now for him just be levitating there, not really doing anything. But the idea that I really want to drive home is I feel like the stand should be a lot bigger. You'll see what I mean when we have a look at his included arms. Maybe we'll postpone looking at his mechanized arms for the time being and instead touch base on all the other accessories that come included with the figure, as the list of those are generally quite small. He comes with some swappable hands. He comes with, of course, the attachment to go on the back of his torso that will allow him to even hold and mount those mechanized arms. And then all the other things are just things that we've gotten before with other Spider-Man. Case in point, he comes included with the same tray of webbing that we've seen with all other Spider-Man figures as far back as I can possibly remember. Nothing really just changed with these. You do get several different lines. I just keep them in the tray for the time being. Some of the lines are ideally suited for if he wants to look like he's just shot this out from his wrists, for example. Comes with a couple of those. Comes with some rather longer lines. You can see right there. And they're all done in translucent plastic. I'm not going to fault necessarily Hot Toys for including them, but it's just the fact it's same old, same old. Nothing really changes from these to the ones that we got before. And then, of course, the longest of the line, and this one happens to be hooked as well. This is ideal if you want to have Spider-Man like looking like he's pulled back on the line before he shoots off the other one. And again, it's all done in translucent plastic. Nothing different. Nothing different. He also comes with the same sort of funneled web. And I really want to express my disinterest in these, not necessarily as for the fact that I don't think the webs look good, but I just wish that we would get something different, a variety of webs from time to time. It just seems like they continue to go back to the same drawer and pull out the same inventory of webs that we've gotten with every single Spider-Man release. I just want to see something different. I want something new for a change. But you can take the web line. I'll just go ahead and take this one for the time being and show you. Any one of them, I guess except for the one that has the web ball on the end, can be attached to the web funnel. If that's not really correct, the term given to that web line, but still, you get the idea. So he has those. Like I said, we've seen this before. Let's go ahead and just put them back in the trays. Hate to lose them. Oh, right, I have like another 6 Spider-Man. Let's have a look at the other things he comes included with. Now, again, all of these are basically just various different hands. Currently in the sockets are a pair of relaxed hands, which we'll look at in a second. He also comes with a couple of wall-crawling hands, as of course he should. I mean, it's Spider-Man after all. The difference being, though, is that the light projected from the interior of the palms, though simulated, there's no real light source coming out from either one of these palms. All they've done is just painted these in, just to kind of give you the idea. The outlining of the blue is decent, but I mean, it certainly does register when you're looking at it, like it's just painted inside the hands. But I appreciate the fact that they did put them in there. I wouldn't want to invest the idea, thinking of getting a die-cast Iron Spider that would have had battery compartments. I get so tired sometimes of putting the batteries inside Iron Man. It's nice to see a bit of a change here for Spider-Man. So like I said, they've gone in and painted that instead. I do like the coloring of these hands. Really all the coloring that we're going to be seeing here on Iron Spider, this rich cranberry red and accented with this nice gold. The plastic, I might also say, is slightly slick to the touch. You can kind of feel it when you run your finger across it. But it comes with a couple of wall-crawling hands. Of course, no Spider-Man would be complete with a couple of web-shooting hands. You can see them right there. And again, you've got the nice gold represented here on the knuckles. But again, your traditional Spider-Man shooting web hands. It comes with also a couple of line-holding hands. And the only real difference between these, I'm going to go ahead and grab the fist. Well, I guess the configuration of the hand is slightly different. It's a little more relaxed on the web line-holding hands. But the difference is, obviously, there's a hole straight through the top. And that will allow him to hold the line. So, for example, if we just take one of the lines here, you just slide that into his hand like that. And it looks like I said, it just looks like he's pulling on one of the lines. So he comes included with those. So those are basically all the accessories. Oh, short of the fact he's also got a couple of swappable pegs. Hot Toys always includes swappable pegs with this figure, or any of their figures really. And this Spider-Man is no different, short of maybe the plastic being a different color. This one being closer to almost like a tomato red. You get this back piece as well, and kind of just already disclosing where it goes. It goes on the back of Spider-Man's torso. This will allow those mechanized arms to attach in place. But in order to do that, you have to pick up, of course, the figure, spin it around, and looking at the back here, before, of course, I start pulling things off of Spidey, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like for the time being. Gives you a nice finished look, continuing, of course, the trend of the gold. The thing about the shoulders, though, is the shoulders swivel. So sometimes, depending on how far you move them out, because they're on a ball joint after all. Let me just bring them out so you can see what I'm doing here. Because of that, though, there is going to be times when it's going to look disjointed from the rest of his body. Now, to be fair, you're going to be removing this anyways and replacing it with a full gold plate. But yeah, when you are moving the arms, especially when you see it from the front, it's going to look a little sectional. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I guess for the time being, we can go ahead and remove this. It is eventually going to be something we're going to remove anyways. So we'll just pull it from the top and then just get your thumb underneath there and just pop the whole thing in. The last thing you really want to do, really, is start prying it just from the one corner. Because of the nature of it being thinner plastic, you really don't want that breaking off. So again, just kind of pull it slightly on the corners and then get your thumb underneath it and pull it like that. Then we go ahead and swap it out with this. You'll also see the placement of only 3 holes on the back, not the 4. We'll go ahead and just replace that, line it up. And all it really is going to be this little peg right here, and it's going to fit into that peg hole. Just snap it in like that. And to show you where we started from to where we've left off, the only thing that's really missing here now is the additional red. I mean, other than that, and of course this one having the holes on the back, there really isn't that much that changes from one to the other. Sorry, I keep promising that I'm going to go ahead and put those arms in place, but I think I might actually just leave them off right now. because once I get those arms in, you'll see how much of a nuisance they tend to be, and they never really stay properly in their holes. And also this gives me the opportunity to really show you guys what the figure looks like before we start adding things on. Promise this is the last time I'm going to detour looking at those arms. In the meantime, though, let's have a look at the head sculpt here, and then we'll work our way down from it. Now, the majority of the figure is still wearing a fabric suit, and then they've just literally put pieces over top of it. The material, I know, just wanted to talk about the head sculpt, but the material that they used is pretty good. It does have a stretchy nature to it, especially when you are moving the arms. The only thing I would say from the short amount of time I've spent with the figure, probably like a couple of hours or so, I've noticed that the suits seem to develop a little bit of a looseness. Wrinkles also could be something that would be problematic on these figures, especially if you have them in long-term poses. But I have heard from some people that even putting them in long poses, that the material seems to settle off afterwards. That would be something I would have to test that theory of. But getting a closer look at the head sculpt, now this is all plastic. It's on top of, course, a plastic body that's wrapped then in this material. The head sculpt is pretty good, mimicking what we would originally get in the comics and then continuing that trend in the Spider-Man video game, of course. They give then the opportunity of adding all this additional panel lining. The panel lining does look pretty good, painted also nicely in the silver. It has a good reflective look to it. If you ask me personally, I've always been a bigger fan of this Iron Spider costume than the one that they used in the movie Infinity War. I didn't really like the design of the Infinity War suits. I wished, if anything, it would have been closer to like this all red, with then the very familiar gold spider logo on the front there. But they didn't go that route. Instead, it was slightly a variation to the spider suit that they already have in the movie, just a little bit different. Didn't like that design. I like this design quite a bit. The larger gold eyes does look quite good, and it has a nice sheen to it. As you can see, the reflective nature of that plastic really does bounce the light off rather nicely. It is super detailed, though it is very simplistic with its design, I suppose. And then from there, of course, we've got the larger chest piece. Now here, it's kind of really hard to describe. This is still material here, but it's slightly smoother than the more textured one down below. But then they basically adhered plates to it. So like this part right here, while it isn't plastic, it definitely is a thicker material than the suit. And they've glued it on the sides. Now, of course, when you are moving the figure, this is something you will want to be careful of. I don't know how strong the adhesive is on the sides. I'm not somebody anyways that gets too risky when it comes to posing his figures. Figures, especially when it comes to Iron Spider's case, are probably just going to display standing up with his arms attached to his torso. But nonetheless, though, I just wanted to point out, though, maybe possibly stress the idea that maybe this material that they've attached to the suit, because it does look like it's a separate piece, feel like it could start pulling off. In fact, I don't know if you can see it right there. There's almost a little bit of a wrinkled crease that's starting to develop on that material. It doesn't seem to be anywhere else, but it seems to be on this style of material that they've attached to the costume. Just something to keep in mind. Of course, you've got the emblem there, a more exaggerated take on the spider emblem. Sectional also, where you've got the legs, of course, not part of the abdomen and thorax. But it's a nice design. This is one of those cases as well with the video game-inspired Hot Toys figures. They still keep to the basic core idea of what the suits look like, and just only enhance them slightly, or I guess enhance them a fair bit, with some additional texturing. Because the original suit in the comics wouldn't have had as much detailing, as much texturing to the costume. Of course, I'm now drawing everybody's attention to his spider behind. A big seam line, unfortunately, unavoidable. So after all, there had to be an entryway for this figure to get into the suit in the first place. And of course, then they would just sew the suit up around it. At least, if anything, they got it from the back. They seamed it and sewed it up from the back. So you're really not going to see it from the front. Again, the gold looks really good, as well as the crimson red. Again, my only real thing I would say is a nitpick to this figure is the fact that the shoulders move. Normally, I would commend the fact that they would have that as a separate piece, especially when it comes to moving his arms, because you wouldn't want those shoulder pads to be in the way anyways. You could technically also bring them down, so it's not a case where they're locked in place. But yeah, they do look a little sectional. On the one end, I'm happy the fact that they did use these as ball joints, so you can move them out of the way if you want to. And they do have some course correction where you can move them back and forth as well. But all the time when you are moving the arms, you may then find yourself just bringing the shoulder pads back. So it just looks a little bit more consistent with the rest of the molding of his body. Then we can have a look at his arms, for example. Some nice detailing done there. Some silver that we looked at before on the head carries over here on the arms. And also some nice gold brought into there as well. It's not seamless, of course, when you're looking at like the arm piece and then it looks then to the rest of his arm, like the fabric material. It's a close enough red, but obviously you can really see that it's just panels on top of the material. A little bit further down, of course, on the legs. Now again, you've got the seam lines on the inside, unavoidable, but I do like the material that they decided to go with. It sort of has like a matrix look to it, little tiny squares. Maybe ones and zeros. Obviously, it's not ones and zeros, but I like the coloring. Darker there, slightly lighter of that crimson red. I'm just really worried about this, which I know I already mentioned already. Just don't know if that's going to start developing some real serious wrinkles, and I don't know if those will eventually go away on me. You can see even here on this side as well. And then further down, of course, we've got the rest of his legs, where, I mean, if you looked at it like this, and if I covered off the top of it, it would almost even look and resemble like a skinnier Iron Man suit, which in actual fact, it really is an Iron Spider suit in this case. Love the detailing done here. Again, a lot of that silver brought into play. Nice panel lines incorporated, and then you've got the gold down below. I have one issue where it seems like the foot is come loose from the bottom. You can see right there. I'm not going to do too much. I don't want to push too much on it because I don't want to cause any more damage to it. He does have toe articulation, which we'll talk about, but you will want to be really careful if you put pressure down on this, at least not this foot, but so far this is the only foot that's giving me problems doing that. Don't want to push it down too much because it literally looks like just the bottom sole is glued in to the rest of Spider-Man's feet. So as promised, here are the mechanized spider arms that you can attach to the back of Spider-Man's torso. You get 3 of these, and having 3 of them down on the display reminds me of going to a buffet dinner and picking out some crab legs. They kind of look like crab legs. But if you straighten them out and you put them next to the figure, they're higher than the figure, and by a lot as well. They're all molded in gold plastic, and they are all the same to one another. So me showing you the details on the one, basically take that and carry that times 2. As you can see, that got some really nice detailing done to them. My one concern, and I don't know if perhaps they've fixed problems like that since, but gold plastic back in the day was always susceptible to breaking, cracking. I don't know if it's going to be the problem here because this is all gold plastic. I wondered if perhaps it was molded in a different plastic and then painted gold, but it seems to be the case that they've molded this in gold plastic. So like the joints, for example, if you ever had like old Transformers, like Beast War Transformers were notorious for this, using gold plastic. Over time, something about that gold, the plastic ended up breaking, splitting, cracking. I really hope that that's not the case with these arms, because the gold looks good. I mean, it doesn't look like they've added any other paint to it. And there are knuckle joints to several different parts of the arm. So it bends right there, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and a smaller 6th down below, going the opposite way. The only thing I wish that the arms could have possessed is the means to twist this. So really, when you are putting it onto the arms, for example, you really have to then rely on the way you're twisting it on the back of the torso. Does that make sense? Because it only goes this way, and you can't rotate them. You can't rotate this end piece. But like I said, the arms do look good. They're quite long and sized appropriately, I think, to the figure. Unfortunately, the only trade-off with putting these on the back of the figure's torso is it's going to make the figure a lot more top-heavy. And there's just really no way around it. To attach the arms, I like to kind of just bend these first until I get what I want to go on the figure, and then from there I just sort of bring and adjust the arms afterwards. So we're going to go ahead and take the figure. Remembering already the fact I've swapped this back piece off. This is critical because obviously the other one isn't going to have the holes on the back. One thing I would say as a complaint to the arms is I don't feel like they gave you a long enough post to work with. When you see me putting the one arm in, you sort of know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to enter into the back of Spider-Man's torso, and I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure. You won't necessarily hear a snap, but you'll know it's in there. And then from there you can adjust the arms. And that's 1. So again, we're going to repeat those steps times 2. But I will say, though, I mean, rotating it in any way, banging it in any way, that post just doesn't stay in place. And before you know it, you're going to have to go back and pop the arm back in. I'm trying to look at how deep this figure is. So, you know, what, it's about 2.5 inches or so, 2 inches. I think they probably could have made it a longer afforded peg, just so it really went in there. Because I just don't feel it's long enough as is. As soon as you pop it in and think it's in place, you start twisting that arm. And the arm starts coming loose from itself, or coming loose from that hole. So there's the first arm. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. Go ahead and pop the first arm in. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other arms, keeping in mind again that they're all duplicates, triplicates from one another. They're all the exact same mold. Pop that in on the top piece. And then lastly, we'll do the last hole, which is just located right here. Sometimes you'll find also when you're popping one arm in, you'll inadvertently pop the other one in off because you'll just put your arm against it. Or you go to move this one in, you'll knock this one off. But that's what the look is after it's all said and done. I mean, it looks great, don't get me wrong. Plastic problems aside, I don't know if, again, the longevity of using gold plastic is going to be a real issue on it. But admittingly, the Spider-Man looks great when you have it on display. Problems, of course, that will arise is the fact it's going to make the figure a lot more top-heavy and more susceptible to falling over. In fact, actually, even in the beginning of this review, the figure had some difficulty, and I had the figure falling over a couple of times. Now, I did push the full stretch of what that display stand was capable of doing. Again, I probably would have made that stand a lot bigger than what it was to compensate for the fact that Spider-Man has the additional sizing because he has the extra arms on him. But again, like when you're looking at the posability on these, they do have all the posability where it counts. And because you do have the extra joint that hinges the opposite way, it means that you can also hinge the arms the opposite way as well. Just like that. And again, like you could really fold these completely, almost completely flat down if you wanted to. I just kind of like to have them out a little bit more so. I mean, I do like the idea that they gave you as much knuckle joints to the arms. So at least if you wanted to, you can really get Spider-Man in the desired pose that you want. But I would definitely wholeheartedly say, if you are looking to get this figure for yourself, it's a valid reason to maybe use a display stand, because that display stand at least will ensure that the figure isn't going to fall over. I don't feel too confident just putting them on display as is, because of the nature of the arms, stretching it as far out as they are, and adding the extra weight that they are doing, I feel like the figure is going to fall over just as is without using a display stand at all. Let's have a look at the articulation now on Iron Spider. I'm going to do my best to try to keep the arms still in place. I'm just telling you in advance, though, as I'm moving things about, those arms could pop off. Just be warned. But for the head does rotate back and forth. It hinges up, it hinges down, and you can also rock the head back and forth. When it comes to the arms do hinge out, and you can almost get a 90-degree angle bend, just short of that, just a little short of that. You can bring the arms forward and back, but of course, with most Hot Toys, especially Spider-Man figures, the nature of the costume really will limit what you can do with them. See, for example, if I bring the arm forward and I bend the elbow, another thing I was going to talk about, see the creases, the wrinkles that develop there? Now, this is just a short period of time of me doing this, just over the course of this review. But leaving it as is, I don't know if long-term displaying him with, say, bent arms, for example, if it's going to leave permanent creases on this material. I'll only really know this if I have the figure displayed for several weeks, several months even, and then I have him bent. Then I can go ahead and put the arm back and see if it's left any damaged permanent creases behind. I have heard from other collectors that have put their figures in rather extreme poses that once you do put the arms back, eventually the material settles itself out. I don't know if, again, that's going to be the case or not. But he does have a swivel at the bicep. There's some limitations, of course, there by the nature of the material. He does have a double bend in the elbow. And then he does have the hand articulation. Again, whatever hands you decide to go with. The top gauntlet, of course, is going to cut across the top of his hand, and resulting in that, maybe a little bit more difficult to twist the hand back and forth. His upper torso, now here's the thing. He does have the crunch forward and back. Mileage may vary, again, especially on those little side pieces of additional adhered material. I just worry about those. He does have a twist back and forth. But again, mileage may vary, and it really all boils down to you as a collector, how reckless, I don't want to use the word reckless, but how much courage you have when it comes to displaying these figures in some really extreme poses. I'm a little bit more of a, I'm less confident, I would say, when it comes to displaying Spider-Man figures or any characters that have crease potential problems with their costumes. I tend to, again, usually put them in just museum poses. I know that's not the most thing to be proud of, but like the legs do move in and out. There's a nice ratcheted joint there. You can bring the legs forward to about that much, and you can also bring the legs back as well. He does have a swivel at the top, just kind of around the area where this extra plastic piece is on his thigh. And similar to an Iron Man figure, because all this down below is plastic, he does have 2 hinges in his knees. I like that. Just don't really like the creaking and squeaking that go along with that. And then as for his feet, the feet move back and forth. You can move them up and down, and there's an ankle pivot as well. Just be careful, though, bringing the toes forward. While the toes bringing forward is not so much the issue, if you bring them back by accident and you put too much pressure down on them, you already see the resulting of that on this foot. And again, a nice opportunity as well to show you the additional paintwork that they put on the undersoles of Iron Spider. Overall, it's a great looking figure. You know, if you're looking at it from just the display end of things, he shows really well, actually. I've always been a big fan of this particular costume, but really the problem comes with things like material for his costuming. I don't know if long-term extreme poses is going to leave permanent wrinkles. I am a little worried about, like, there we go. Don't want him to fall over. I am a little worried about these little side pieces on the material that I talked about, of course, before. The way that they're adhered to the material, the under costuming. I feel like they're going to lift, they're going to leave permanent creases. But again, that could just be me being overly worrisome. I do like the idea of the arms. Like, the arms do look great, but again, like, they don't stay as well in the torso as I would hope. If they had only just made the pegs, the entry pegs, just a little bit longer than what they did, I feel like the arms would stay a little bit better in the back of torso, the back of the torso of Spider-Man. But when it's all said and done, liking already the Iron suit, the Iron Spider suit from the comics, and this one being slightly a more modern take of it, I think it turned out really good with some little bit of limitations to what you can do with the figure. For some reason, one accessory I completely left out of this review, but again, it's something that we've gotten with other Spider-Man releases, is the web he's currently holding in his hand. I figured I'd just rectify it here in Final Looks by actually including it, and also showing you how you can display the figure with the display stand. Still wish that display stand a little bit wider than what it is. It barely holds the weight of Spider-Man, especially when you put the arms in place. Would this be something I would like to display long-term in this pose? Absolutely. But again, between the wrinkling of the costume that I think is going to happen and the stability of properly holding the figure with such a small display stand, the chances of this falling over, as you're currently seeing here in Final Looks, is quite high. Because of that, I'm probably not going to display him like this on the shelf, but I do like the idea that you can. I just really wish that the display stand was a lot bigger than what it was. Iron Spider doesn't have much in the way of accessories. Pretty much all the same Spider-Mans that you've been collecting from Hot Toys, you pretty much know by now those same familiar webs. By now, you would think that Hot Toys could give you something different in the web department, but no, we're pretty much going to get that same tray of webs with every single Spider-Man. I will say, though, at least to the credit of Hot Toys, that they are giving us the video game-inspired Spider-Man costumes. And through that, we're also then getting comic-inspired costumes like the Spider-Man 2099, which I will be doing a review of, and Iron Spider here that we had a look at in this review. Iron Spider's got some great, vibrant colors to him. I sort of, again, wish that the Marvel Cinematic Universe could have adopted this particular Iron Spider suit instead of the one that we got. The one that we got in the film was just okay. This one is a lot more interesting, though. Yes, the arms are a little problematic to get in place, especially and stay in place when you are rotating them. Even here in Final Looks, I've already had the arms fall off twice on me, and this is the third go-around that we're going to try doing this. Let's hope those arms stay in place. You know, also, again, when I mentioned in this review, the arms being composed of gold plastic, will that be an issue over time? I know it's been a problem in the past with gold plastic cracking and splitting. I hope that's not going to be the case here with Iron Spider. I'm already worried about his material wrinkling. I don't need to be worrying about the gold plastic being a problem as well. Yes, he does have few problems going for him, but the end result is still a pretty impressive looking Spider-Man to put on display. I would love to put him on display like this. It's probably not going to happen, though. What do you guys think of Iron Spider, the Hot Toys release? Let me know down below in the comments section. And for your video question for today, what's your favorite non-traditional Spider-Man costume? So instead of like the regular blue and red costume, what is your favorite non-traditional Spider-Man costume? I think my favorite is Spider-Man 2099 or the black symbiote costume. Oh, I would hope we would get a black symbiote costume Spider-Man. Fingers crossed, but let me know down below in the comments section. If you're also new to this channel and you're enjoying all the content you've been seeing here on a regular basis, and just know we are going to be looking at more Hot Toys reviews. So I know if people have been asking, will I be doing more Hot Toys reviews? The answer is yes. A resounding yes. But make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you turn on the bell notification. Make sure, you come back to this channel on a regular basis because there's always new stuff coming your way. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.